We could say that right there to the camera. Tiger, anytime you want to sit down, we'd love to have you.
Foreplay presented by Barstool Sports. We have a great show, full interview with our good friend Chad Mumm, who is the executive producer of Full Swing, the Netflix golf show that everybody's aware of. Great storyteller, insane story from start to finish, getting that thing off the ground, like a decade in the making, getting players signed, getting the Masters signed, getting the Ryder Cup signed, all kinds of good stuff, what we can expect this season. So awesome interview with Chad. He's obsessed with golf, and we pretty much hop right in and speak for the entire time. We're live here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that the backdrop is one of the finest on planet Earth. We're got Stillwater Cove behind us. We're at Pebble Beach Golf Links, The Hay, which is the new Tiger Woods designed par 3 course. This is where you saw Tiger a few weeks ago. Tiger and Charlie out here hitting all kinds of shots. That guy got a hole-in-one in front of Tiger. All that happened here. And we're here because we're raising money for Youth on Course. So I just have to give a massive shout out to TaylorMade and to Youth on Course, who partnered up for this event. We're out here with Michael Block, Grant Horvat. We got Micah. We got Mac. Boucher? I thought it was Boucher because he's Canadian, and he was like, no, of course it's not Boucher, you idiots. Amazing guy, the way he works the ball. If you haven't seen him on Instagram, he's fantastic. So we're having Trotty's here. Everybody's here. So a great group. Barbuti, who we got to get Barbuti on the podcast at some point. He has an ace today. But we're raising money because Youth on Course, organization that not-for-profit, raises money to allow there to be very affordable access to golf. That affordability is just $5. So kids in the United States of America can play golf for just $5 because of all the work that Youth on Course does. So TaylorMade and Youth on Course partnered together here with Pebble Beach at the Hay to put on this event, and then everyone's obviously trying to raise awareness, doing the 100-hole hike. I've done like 45 holes so far, so I got a long way to go. And then use all of this awareness to raise money. I think we've raised over 100 grand so far. Huge shout out to our fans, Foreplay fans, because I'm winning. I'm leading. Everybody has like a leaderboard. We've raised $28,000 or something like that, right around there though thus far, just on my links. That means a lot to us. But yeah, TaylorMade Golf, one of our great partners, the best makers of equipment in the history of the world and in the history of golf, and Youth on Course. So amazing event. We're here. Chad's here as part of the event as well, so that's why we get to sit down and chat. But Pebble Beach Golf Links has put us up. I mean, last night we just ate dinner at the lodge and then went over to the tap room and had drinks until like midnight. We're going to do the same thing tonight. We're all staying at these places overlooking the ocean. It's insanity that we're at Pebble Beach. So insanely cool event. Thanks to everybody who's donated, and enjoy this chat with our friend Chad. Chevrolet has over 1,900 certified EV dealerships and over 5,550 EV trained technicians. Chevy has been in the electric vehicle game. We've talked about it a lot for over 10 years. They have the knowledge and the skills to sell or service any Chevy EV. It's true, you have less routine maintenance when you do get an electric vehicle, but if you need maintenance on your Chevy EV, they have technicians that are EV certified. The nationwide dealership is a true value to consumers because we are there for you with any electric vehicle questions. Go to Chevy.com/electric. Check out a bunch of the models that you know to come and love for years and years and years. For over a century now, Chevy's been making vehicles. For over a decade now, they've been making the EVs. So go check out the Silverado, the Bolt, the Blazer, all the good ones, the EV, the EUV. Check them out, Chevy.com/electric. They're trusted, they're true, the bow tie. That's Chevy.com/electric.
I've been like just so impressed with you guys. I actually thought I woke up this morning because I knew that we were going to be out here together, and I was thinking like when Tiger won the Masters in 2019, like as soon as I got done like crying and basically just celebrating in the kitchen, I was like, I cannot wait for tomorrow's foreplay. I was so pumped because I'm like, it's been so close for so long. When we won the Tour Championship, that was like one of my all-time favorite episodes. As a fan, like you just want to be able to experience that like one more time.
I think we will.
Just the high of it, you know?
Yeah, I think we will.
I mean, I would be happy with just that because as a like that is why I got into golf. Like, you know, when I was 14, that was like peak. Tiger was winning everything, And it
Me
was like,
too.
I've
I
never
think we're
seen.
the same age. I think we're
How
very
old are you?
similar age. I'm 36.
Oh yeah, I just turned 37. So.
And I legit, like, so we do this trivia show at Barstool, the Dozen,
Yeah.
and you get to pick your niche category. And we do Tiger Woods, but Jeff always wants you to narrow it down to like a decade. And I messed up one time and did like 2000 to like 2009, which I thought would be good. But I realized that I didn't really get into golf and therefore everything Tiger till like 2004, 5.
Right.
And so I actually, that stretch of like 2001 to 2004, I didn't really know stuff.
My God, you missed like that amazing,
Missed it.
that era.
Whereas like 05 to now, I know everything.
Yeah.
And so, so you realize,
Wow.
but that was what got me into it too. And I remember tuning in, it was like 05, my brother and I had gotten really into golf in like 04. And I tuned in 05 to just a regular weekend tour event, which I had never really done before. And just to check what was going on. And it was like a Sunday afternoon event. And Tiger was up by like 6 or something. I was like, oh, this guy just wins every week.
Yeah.
That was all I knew. And then going into the first one that I really watched, I was paying attention, was 05, the British Open. I missed like the Masters chip in that year. I just wasn't like,
you weren't dialed. Yeah.
I wasn't dialed. And then by 05, the Open at St. Andrews, I was watching and I instantly was like, this is my favorite athlete in history. This guy is unbelievable.
So awesome.
He's just unbelievable.
I remember that summer when I was the 2000 summer. I think I was in 9th grade, maybe 10th grade. And that was when he won the US Open here at Pebble. And it was like blitz the field, 15 under. Then goes to the Open, I guess it was the PGA was next.
No, it would have been PGA was last.
PGA was last.
It was before they did it.
Yeah, so then it was the Open.
Yep.
So then he goes and just blitzes St. Andrews, same thing, just amazing. The Valhalla.
He won at St. Andrews by 8.
By 8. And then Valhalla against Bob May, like that iconic final round, and then coming back to win the Masters. But just like that summer, I was like, okay, I've always been into golf, but I am all in. And that's like the dream. That's where this dream sort of started. It's amazing that I get to do this for a living now.
So I think one of the most underrated putts in the history of golf was that 6-footer that Tiger hit on the 72nd hole after Bob May makes that putt from off the green.
Yeah.
And whoever the announcer was at the time, it did look like Bob May like kind of just didn't hit a good putt. And he's like, nope, it's not going to be. And then it curls back to the hole and goes in.
Yeah.
And now Tiger's got this 6-footer for birdie, and he hits it, and it looks like it's not going to break, and it barely breaks enough. It goes in. He gives a huge fist pump.
Oh my God.
And then goes in. So going back, and it is nice. I mean, I've watched all of them so many times now that I'm numb to it. But it was cool as I became a Tiger guy, and everything started getting put on YouTube in like the late 2000 teens, going back and just watching that final 9-hole stretch from Valhalla, being like, I don't really know what happened.
Yeah, because you watched the whole thing.
I know what Tiger wins, but I don't know how.
That's the magic of it. Okay, my favorite like watching Tiger Woods story, 2008 U.S. Open, Torrey Pines. I am flying back, so I had gone on a college visit or something, or I'd visited my buddy. He lived in California. He was at USC. I was going to school at Georgia, so I would have just been graduating, I guess. And I was on a Delta flight back, and it was like a big 767. So I'm sitting somewhere in the back. I'm like,
Delta's good too. They probably got some.
They got the TVs, right? And I'm like, oh my God, it's the final round of the US Open. It's like a 5-hour flight. So it was perfect. Like we were literally taking off, like right as Tiger was teeing off. And as I'm like watching that final round come together, I'm looking, I'm like in one of the last rows, and I'm like kind of peeking, and I see like more and more TVs are like turning to Tiger Woods, like live. Is he going to win this golf tournament?
Because he like doubles one, right? And like falls behind.
So I was the only person watching golf. And then by the time he gets to like the 71st hole, I remember like I stand up, and it was like the entire airplane, everybody had like hit each other, be like, you should turn to Tiger, like Tiger's about to win the US Open, whatever. And when that putt went in, when he makes that like curler, the whole plane cheered, like screamed. The whole plane was, what? It felt like we were a gallery. Like I'm getting chills thinking about it. Like, because everybody was like locked in. People are turning around and high-fiving behind the seats.
Yep.
Like on a Delta flight,
That's amazing.
These flight attendants are just like shaking their heads, clapping. People are ordering drinks.
That's
awesome.
Unreal. That is fantastic.
Awesome.
I remember watching that, and we had done that weekend. We had done a lake trip. We had gone down to Lake of the Ozarks with our family, and it's like 2.5 hours back from Lake of the Ozarks back to like St. Charles, where our house was. And we roll back, and we got back on Sunday. We got back with like 4 holes left, and Tiger was like, it was when he was down 1, and he had those 4 holes, and it's pretty obvious it was starting to develop that as long as like Rocco doesn't birdie 18, like Tiger's, if he just needs one birdie coming, and he had on like 16, he left one right in the jaws a little bit short. 17, he left one right in the jaws a little bit short. 18, he yanks that driver, like hates his 9-iron afterwards into the rough, and you're thinking, no way, after all that magic on Saturday, the 2 eagles, all this stuff, there's no way he's just not going to do it. And in your brain, you think, like, this, nobody can muster this much magic, man.
Yeah.
And he hits that shot in there, and it kind of zips back a little, and you're like, this putt's really hard. It's not going to break. It's not going to break. And then it breaks and catches it. You're like, of course it was going.
Nobody's ever made, like, those putts in those moments every time. It was like every time.
It's
went
just,
in. It's like you just will it in the hole. And when you see that low angle of that putt, the green's like destroyed. I mean, if that ball's like bouncing around, I mean,
Poana, it's just nuts.
Just late in the day, like everybody walking there, it's flat right down there. So it's just like, yeah, I mean, God, Tiger. It's the greatest.
So
it's the greatest.
Chad Mumm, you're the executive director or executive producer of Full Swing. You got the visor on the whole
got the
deal.
visor, you know.
You've been, I mean, your last 2 years, you've told us a story before, kind of how you got into it. You're a golf nut.
Mm-hmm.
You're obsessed with golf.
Of course.
You have been for a long time.
Yep.
But you've been in the production game. Like, how did it get from PGA Tour being pretty tight on everything, on rights, on any video, on any media, to opening up the gates and allowing this whole thing to happen and occur?
You know, it was like a war of attrition. You know, not a war, but I wore them down. I mean, it took me almost 9 years from the first time I pitched the tour on doing a doc series to like it making it to the air. So the full story of it was, I've been out in LA for 9 years now, running the film and TV biz for Vox Media, and before that I ran like digital content. So I like did stuff like this and made web videos, YouTube stuff. And I was a golf super nerd, and the tour, it had to have been like 2012, was, I guess smarter, savvy enough to say, hey, we want to work with some smarter digital media companies, kind of like the way they do with Barstool now. And so we went down there to pitch them on a couple of ideas, and I was like, you guys need to get more like social and think about how you make like social media more fun, and there's this like blossoming thing happening there. But the other thing is, I was like, I think that the best thing you can do for your athletes in a sort of post-Tiger world is you got to like, let's make a Hard Knocks doc series following these guys. And they liked both ideas, and then it was like, no thanks. So,
which is a good vision to have at that time, because nobody was doing anything like that, especially in golf, and you don't know. Right, like when you do have an idea like that, you don't necessarily know that all the people are going to be interesting. Or
I remember we made a little teaser video of like what a social video would be like. We did a profile of Hunter Mahan, and we did a rookie to watch, Jordan Spieth, and it was like, God, we were right.
That's nuts.
We had it.
I can't hear the name Hunter Mahan and just not think about that flub chip at the Ryder Cup.
Oh my God!
And he deserves better than that.
He does.
He does deserve better than that.
Yeah.
But I think about that every time.
Oh God, I know. At least he owned up to it.
Big time.
It's a bad shot.
Yeah, he seems like a class act.
Totally.
So you start pitching these things. This is how many years ago? I mean, if Spieth is like up and coming, this is.
Yeah, it was like 2012 or 2013.
Nuts.
I mean, it was a long time ago. And then but I just stayed in touch with they liked how much I loved golf. I'm sure there was a bunch of other people who went down there from digital media and, talked a big game about how they knew how the internet works. And I was just like, yeah, I know that stuff. But like, let me tell you about like my 18 favorite PGA Tour players from like the 90s. And, like just absolute.
Yeah, I mean, you're
psychopath.
Such a golf nut that you bought for this 100-hole hike that we're doing. You bought a carry bag off Amazon.
Yep.
And then you basically sewed in your own patches to give it a little bit of flair.
I didn't sew them. I glued them on because I don't know how to sew.
Yeah,
I thought I was going to attempt to sew it, and then I was like, that's going to end an injury or something. But yeah, no, I love it. And so anyway, I stayed in touch. They liked how passionate I was about the sport. They were like, okay, we could trust that you're like a fan, and I think that's what they needed. And so I stayed in touch with the tour execs, and as I went out to LA and I started the studio, we started, our first show was a Netflix series called Explained. We made like 85 episodes of it. So it kind of came out of the gate like pretty hot, like as a production company.
85 episodes?
Yeah, it ended up being like 80 plus episodes with a bunch of, all spin-offs and all kinds of stuff, and really like, worked pretty well for like a first kind of big show. And then I'd see them every year at CES. The tour would go out for meetings. That was kind of a big marketing event alongside the tech show. And they'd invite me to play golf, and I was always down to play golf with whoever. And I just kind of kept working them and saying like, now's the time. Let's make our Hard Knocks. And then 2019 was like, it was January 2019. It was the first week of the year. A month or two before, Jay Monahan had like ascended to the commissionership. And Jay has more of a marketing background than Tim Fincham did. Tim was the whole old school PGA Tour. It's like, this is a gentleman's game.
And you're keeping a watchful eye on this stuff.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, as a fan, but also like, this is my dream project. And I love golf, so I play a lot of golf in LA. I play with a lot of other producers. Like, it's not an original idea. I mean, every producer who plays golf, people who have way more credits than I do, like make giant movies and huge TV shows.
It's kind of all their dream.
They're like, I want to make a golf show. I'm like, oh yeah, me too. We're like, who's gonna get it? Who's gonna convince them? And we went out and played. I remember it was like a Wednesday. I got a call from Chris Wandell at the PGA Tour. He said, hey, you want to play Shadow Creek tomorrow morning? I'm like, absolutely, I'm in.
I don't care what it's about, I'm in.
Doesn't matter. Rental clubs. We go out there on the first tee, and I said, Chris, I think it's time. Like, let's make the show. He's like, I think it's time. So over that 18 holes, we hashed out the deal that became like they were going to grant me the rights to make a show on the PGA Tour. So I had a year of exclusivity. So I was the only producer in the world who could make a show like this, which kind of immediately boxed out everybody else, which is kind of how you have to do it.
Box them out.
That's how you got to do it to make shows. You got to just like, you got to get a moat and figure out what your moat is, and then you can start to go to work. And that was like the most impactful round of golf I've ever played. I think it was also like I shot like 95. I mean, it was terrible.
Yeah, whatever.
But it didn't matter. So we handshake agreement on the 18th hole. Like, we're doing this thing. And then 2 months later, I went out to the players and officially we signed the deal, signed the contract. It was all done. And then they're like, okay, good luck. I'm like, well, can't you just like start calling players? They're like, no. Like, we can't make players do anything. Like, that's on you. Like, go have fun. We'll introduce you some agents. And we'll say that we're supporting this, but we're not, like, we can't.
So you've got now like a pretty daunting task of, okay, I have to sell this to players, agents.
How do I build that trust? I mean, it had been sort of 6 years of trust building with the tour. So I knew, they knew they could trust me. And the big thing was, I was the only person who could make a doc series, but also like they didn't have editorial control. That was the big thing. Like I said,
huge.
Day one, it has to be, they're going to cuss. Like, it's got to be warts and all. We're not going to like destroy you
for no reason.
Yeah. But it's
you deserve to be
relationship.
Destroyed, fine.
Then yes, we will.
Yeah.
But like we're gonna have the final say, and like you gotta have to trust that like good storytelling will be great for the PGA Tour and these athletes, kind of no matter who looks good or bad in each moment, And so then I had to go do that again for 28 different players. So we signed 28 players for season 1 of Full Swing, and the first player to say yes was Ricky Fowler. Because Ricky knows, he knows what it's about.
He gets the branding.
He gets it
better than anybody.
So he said yes, and then Tony Finau, Cameron Champ, who's rep by Tony Finau's agent, he jumped in.
Are those decisions and discussions more run by the agents or by the player?
It was a little bit of both. So with like, and then
there's
JT,
some guys who just lean on whatever their agent tells them to do.
Oh yeah. I mean, but like they're all sort of CEOs of their own brands too. Okay. So they're way more business savvy, or at least like their own thing, than a lot of athletes who are inside of an infrastructure of a team, and there's a lot of like comm support around
the
them.
owner's technically their boss and pays them, and they do whatever.
That's right. Golfers are a lot more independent, and thus like if once you've been around it a while, like they know, they've done all the corporate events, they know how to talk to CEOs, they know, and some of them don't love that, but they're like around that environment, and I think they were great, and they thankfully most of them are fans of like, because this was before Drive to Survive actually even came out. Like, we were doing this.
Drive to Survive come out, what, 2020?
2019, I think, or 2020.
Okay.
But it came out at the end, like right before COVID it came out. And then season 2 came out like in the middle of COVID.
That's right, because they were in mass. Yeah, that's right.
That's when it blew up.
Right.
So, but, these golfers had watched Hard Knocks. And so originally the idea was we're going to do sort of six or seven guys. We were going to do it more Hard Knocksy. And then Drive to Survive came out. That's when Netflix got involved, like during COVID. So it actually ended up working out perfect because we couldn't get enough. Like, we couldn't get all the player deals done in 2019. So we're like, okay, we'll just do it in 2021 because we'll work on signing more players 2020. And then the shutdown happens, which ended up working out great for us.
Yep.
Because that was the first time that all the governing bodies of golf like came together because they had to rewrite the schedule. They had to,
which they did quickly.
They did.
It was amazing.
It was, apparently that when they all got on like a Zoom, it was like the first time that like the 5 families had like sat at a table together in years.
Yep.
And I mean, I'm sure they all have relationships, but it was like it truly brought golf together.
They're on a meeting together, like literally the
Masters
five
go in
families, the
November.
people.
Like, we're gonna pull the British Open this year, the Open Championship. We're moving the PGA up, and golf was the first pro sport back on television. With the TaylorMade event. Actually, here we are at TaylorMade's 100-hole
Shout
hike.
out to TaylorMade.
Shout out to TaylorMade down at Seminole, which was, I remember watching that. Like, oh my God, we're
Matt
back.
Wolff was in that.
Matt
That was
Wolff.
like Matt Wolff wasn't really that much of a name yet. He was in that.
That's right.
That was fun. DJ, I remember DJ in the first hole marked his ball with a T.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "This is great.
This is
This is cool.
We're back. We're back." But anyway, so then, but because of Drive to Survive, like that show, really like pushed the format of sports docs to be like, okay, you can be a year with it. You can take, you can take time. You can do a binge drop. So that's when Netflix like really started
because
getting
we're
interested.
such a culture now of instantaneous and things move 12 hours cycle gone.
Oh yeah.
The biggest story you could imagine you're talking about, and within if it happens that night, by the next morning something new is broken, some news, some free agency, somebody's injured, and that story's gone.
That's gone.
And so now you're gonna wait a whole year
Yeah.
before you put anything out.
I know.
That's kind of wild.
It is wild, but I think also like it's good because now you have some distance, and so you forget, like you said, you remember, what happens at the end of the Valhalla Tiger Woods final round, but like you don't remember how he got there. And so you can relive those moments, and if now you've got all the context of like the internal monologue of this player who's been through it all year, you've seen their highs, you've seen their lows, even if you know what's going to happen, like Matt Fitzpatrick in season 1 at the end of the US Open, like I know he's going to hit that and win the US Open out of the bunker, but by the time you get into that episode, it's episode 5, you're like deep in it. That ball goes in the bunker, you're like, oh my God, it crushed. I was rooting for him.
He deserves this.
He deserves
How's this going to end this way?
And then we hit you with the Bon Iver needle drop, and it just just rip your heart right out, and like it was fun.
Need a good gift idea? Don't know where to start? Well, check out our favorite online shopping destination for all things golf. That is G4. They are truly just cool. They get it. They got comfortable shoes. Yeah, but they also got a lot of amazing styles on their shoes. Their new holiday collection includes all kinds of items for life on and off the golf course: sweaters, beanies, polos, and that's just the stuff you can wear. There's driver covers, head covers, a cashmere blanket, a bottle opener, since it's legit holiday party season. They have every type of shoe you could ask for. That's true. They just got a million different kinds of shoes now, and they're all phenomenal. They got the 112s, they got the MG4 Pluses, they got the MG4 X2s. They got all kinds of phenomenal shoes over there at G4. Plus they got street shoes. People don't realize that. They got a lot of great shoes that you don't necessarily have to wear on the course. You can just wear around town, to work, out to the bar, to the gym, wherever you'd like to wear them. The true traditional shoe, which is the Gallivanter, which we've raved about for a long time, down to, like I said, more of the sneaker style that are insanely comfortable. Give them a visit at G4, because gift giving is easy when you know where to look. Check out g4.com/barstool. That's GFORE.com/barstool for 10% off your first order. 10% off at g4.com/barstool. So I've been reading Alan Shipnuck's book, Live or Let Die, and we had him on like a month ago or so to discuss it, and I didn't tell him at the time, but I hadn't read it yet, and I was a little bit hesitant to get that into it, because it's like, I'm exhausted of Live. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Do I really need to go through this? And then I was kind of talking last show with Dan, who's obviously a big full swing star, about how the when it contextualizes everything, and then someone like Shippy writing it, who puts all these incredible facts, anecdotes behind all of it, and then you remember the context of those events that occurred, whether it was them like releasing the roster for the first London event or whatever it was, and Live, that rereading it is awesome. And I enjoy going back through the last 3 years way more than I thought I would. And it was the same with Full Swing, where you don't, in a lot of that context, like truly that type of footage that does contextualize it never existed before.
No.
All the stuff with like Joel qualifying for the US Open and the White Claws that he's drinking at the, in between rounds. And then because all we really see as a golf fan is like, oh, there's Joel Damien. He's in the US Open. That's not that surprising. Of course, he's in the US Open. He's in a lot of tournaments. And oh, he's playing well this week. Very cool. It's emotional. It's kind of all you think.
Totally.
And then you go through all of it. And you're like, he almost didn't even like play his second round in the US Open qualifier. He's like, I'm out of it.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah, no. And you see that, and then you come to root for him, because, from the beginning and the first moment of like getting to know him as a viewer, it's just not what you expect out of a pro golfer. And that's when you do these kinds of doc series, right? Whether it's like David Beckham or Joel Damon, it's like you just want to be surprised and unexpected, and you want to build like empathy for the athlete, and you want to show them as a human being, not just like as a superstar, because they could all do amazing stuff like out there on the golf course. It's like, how do you bring them to life through like their friendship or their relationships, whether it's like Joel and Gino, or Joel and his wife, or it's about those like human stories, because then you can build the context. And then we always think about the golf as like the payoff. I mean, ideally, like a full swing episode will be like 80% not golf, and then 20% payoff of all that work and context that you've seen all year,
which emphasizes the golf.
Yeah, because it just, you don't need to. I don't need to show you, every hole of the U.S. Open. I can show you 4 that matter in the context of the story, and it still feels just as surprising, just as emotional.
Right. So early 2019, you get this deal done at the Players. Now we're into 2020, the shutdown, the meeting of the 5 families, the whole deal. You're still at this point. I know you said it ended up working out great, which it clearly did. We're sitting here in full swing as a monster. But at that point, are you like panicking when there's the shutdown? Are you worried that your window's closing? Like, what do you...
It's always panicking. Yeah. I mean, I was like...
always.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't know if like Netflix would ever be... like it was... Who knew what was going to happen? So it was like, God, it was so close. It worked so hard to get the rights and build the trust. And now it's like, we don't even know when golf's going to be back. But they started to, they had the meeting of the 5 families. The other really important like meeting that still sticks out to me is I had a meeting with Augusta, and I grew up in Georgia. Like Augusta National to me is like hallowed ground. I love being out there. I remember. What
does that mean, you have a meeting with Augusta? I always think of like you're sitting in like a chair, and there's just a big like wall.
It's a wall.
Yeah, and the wall is like, "Welcome, Chad."
It's like Wizard of Oz style.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, we had a Zoom meeting, and I was, I live in LA. They're on the East Coast, so we did an early morning meeting. I think it might have been like 6 a.m., like 9 o'clock their time. And I remember like waking up early. I woke up at like 3 because I was so jacked. I was like, oh my God, this is the meeting. If this goes well, like we have something, because that was basically what Netflix said. If you can get the majors on board, we're in. Like we're gonna do this thing.
Did you consider wearing any Masters apparel for
I
the
thought
meeting?
about it. I thought about it, but I'm like, that would be a little too. And then I had like at one point
they can sniff that out.
They sniffed that out, but also like I had like one of my best friend in high school, his father passed away from ALS, and so I scattered his dad's ashes like an amen corner, like surreptitiously.
What a move!
And I was like thinking about telling that story, but then also they might just be like, hang up, like
and the police just show up at your door. Yeah. A trap door opens and you're gone.
I don't really know.
Yeah, that's right.
So I've saved that story. Well, now they can out me. So
sorry, you're fine.
But no, so I get on the Zoom, and it's just like, it just says literally like Augusta National under their Zoom. There's no like names or whatever. We have a really nice conversation, and it really wasn't about tactical, like how it's going to work. It was just, let me tell you about what I understand the Masters is to me, and what I want it to be to viewers of this show. And that was my sell, which is like, we want to preserve the mystery. We're not here to like pull back all the curtain. If you can just leave it open a little bit, then it's going to feel like you have a ton of access. So we don't need to be running around unfettered. We want to preserve the magic of it. It's the first major of the year. It has so much history. If we can open it up a little bit, it's going to be more than anyone's ever seen before.
Yep.
And they understood obviously that I like loved the Masters and respected it. And by the end of the call, they're like, okay, yeah, we get it, we're in. I mean, it was like kind of an easy.
Surreal.
They would have never been on that call in the first place if they weren't like interested in doing it. I don't think I had to really sell them, but I think they were just like, who is this person?
They're not wasting their time with a call that they're not going to consider.
Exactly. And then once Augusta said yes, probably not surprisingly, like all the other majors were like all in.
Huge. And that's huge for you, because I remember when we first got our first deal with Peter Millar that we did, I remember that allowed a lot of dominoes to fall for us, because other companies that might be, they look at Barstool, they're not sure, we might be a little too risky. Like, well, Peter Millar's a class act, and they're working with these guys. Like, how bad could they be? And that was like, that kind of stuff's huge. I know you probably know Pat Kravitz over there, who's a fantastic guy. He used to work for PGA of America, really, really nice guy. And when we went to the PGA this year at Oak Hill, and we did across the street or right next door at Irondequoit, which Alex Bush is a member at, grew up a member there. We did like this scramble event, and I was texting with Pat because he's like, I'm going to be in town if you want to, grab a drink or say hi or whatever. I was like, why don't you come by our event? And he showed up with one of his coworkers, and they were in like all black with like a Masters logo there. And I was like, you're a different person now. And I was like, and you should be.
Yeah.
And I respect that you're a different person, but you and I, like, we have like a wall between us a little bit now because you're Mr. Masters, and his buddy had the same exact outfit. And they could have been nicer, but I'm like, You're different now. You're Masters. You're Augusta National. You're walking around as Augusta National.
Oh yeah, no, it's and they do, but they're like delightful. They have, you know, what I appreciate now, sort of having been to the Masters to produce this show twice now. They take it really seriously. The like improvement notes. I don't know if you've heard of this before, but they do these things called TINs, and so basically anybody who is there in any capacity, media partner like us, I'm sure they do it on the commercial side, whatever. They asked for notes, like, what can we do to make this event better? And imagine if you're them, you do the same golf course, same property every single year. You've got a year to plan for it, but you still, like, every year, you're taking thousands of notes and picking out like little ideas that you could use to just make it better.
As the event that already does it better than anyone could possibly do it.
Yeah. And they asked them, what could we do better? And we're like, well, we could have used another, I don't know, like another phone line or something. They're like, there's another phone line the next year.
There's 10 more phone lines, no problem.
It's just it's so impressive, and they do care and like live it, which is great. And I found them to be a delight to work with.
Yeah.
Because they're professionals and they want it to be great. And they have a high standard, but so do we. So
once they come in and they're pretty on board, it's an easier sell for everybody.
Yeah. And then the big challenge then, so this is like now mid 2020. And so we're cooking now. I got the majors. I'm like, Netflix, let's go. Like, pick it up. And so the way it works in Hollywood, there's like, you're not officially sold a show until you get basically what's called like a pickup. So they send you an agreement, and it's like, we are ordering the show. So we're going to order 8 episodes. This is the budget. Like, that's the deal. And then from there, it's like you get cash flowed and you can start shooting. And like, but you're never sold until it's sold. Like, up until that moment, they could be super interested. You could be in these discussions.
Because I didn't know any of that. That's good to know.
Until you get that pickup, it's like you don't have anything. And so for me, it was like, how do I get them to a place where they already are interested? It feels like it's going to be, yes, I got the Masters, I got the rest of and the PGA Tour is very helpful in navigating the majors as well. I want to make sure, give them a shout out PGA Tour. They were really great at being like, hey, we trust him. Let's set up calls. Like,
were there awesome. Other networks you're pitching at the same time?
Yeah. We're talking to everybody.
HBO Max, like everybody. Yeah.
Yep. And there was interest from others too. And Netflix obviously had the scope of like, we're going to go big. We're going to do like Drive to Survive style. That show had just broken out for them in a big way.
Is Netflix in that world like the biggest fish that you can get?
I think like now, definitely. Only because the entertainment industry has been in strike. It's like everybody's kind of pulled back, and Netflix is like in a very strong position.
Yeah.
But back then, it was like them, HBO, ESPN, Apple, Amazon, like those are the Hulu, I guess. Those are all the sort of big dogs. So you want to be at any one of those, and we're focused on streamers and modern audiences. So like that's our focus. But yeah, we knew it was going to be a big deal. I've made I think 13 shows for Netflix. So like I know them very well. There's a lot of trust. Like I think it would have been, we knew we were going to be successful with Netflix. The show would have been great at another network as well. But like, it just felt like that was where things were headed.
It's not going to fail if you're with Netflix.
There's no guarantees, but they don't have, it was like that Netflix effect is a real thing. And so, anyway, so now it's like, okay, are you going to pick up the show? We got the majors, everybody signed. Like, are we ready to go? And they're like, we need like some guarantees on players. Like, I think I had 7 or 8 signed at that point. And they're like, we've got a list.
You had Ricky?
I had Ricky, I had JT, I had Tony Finau, I had Cameron Champ, I had...
And signed on, we were kind of talking about this last night. Signed on means they're agreeing that you're gonna be able to film them pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, it's sort of like, we're not, we don't pay that, like, the players.
Yeah.
Like, emphatically, like, nobody gets paid to be in full swing.
Okay.
The trade-off there, sometimes I wish we were paying them, because then I can make them do stuff. The trade-off is like, hey, we're not going to pay you, but so therefore, like, there's no minimum access. Like, you can sign the agreement and just never let us film with you, and you're just not going to be in the show that much.
Yeah, that's right.
So you kind of have to lean in if you want, and that's why I respect the guys that have leaned in.
And their position of gain is, in theory, their brand, right? They grow their brand.
Yeah, grow their brand, and like
exposure.
I think some of them like really were like, it's something that's like a moment in time in my life that like I might want to watch again one day, or I might want my kids to see one day when I have kids, or and also it's sexy. Like they watch Drive Survive and they're like, I want our sport to get that treatment. Like I want it to look cool. I never cared about Formula One racing. Now I'm obsessed. Like,
so if I can have that effect for
I want my sport to do. That's what I've dedicated my life to. I want it to look cool like that too. So I think there's I don't know. You have to ask why everyone does it, but so anyway. But signing up basically means that they agree to let us like film them. They understand they're not being compensated. It sort of just says, okay, we're gonna start. We'll start with an interview, and then we're gonna kind of go from there. When you're at tournaments, we're gonna be following you. When you're at home, we're gonna ask if we can come over. You can always say no, and we're just gonna ask the next day. And it's like, and we build these relationships. But Netflix came back with a list of like I think it was 15 players that were there, like these are musts get. And of course, the top list is like Tiger Woods, you know,
oh yeah,
Phil Mickelson,
Rory McIlroy,
like
Jordan Spieth,
Jordan Spieth, Dustin Johnson, all these guys. and they're like, we need you to get half of this list. And I'm like, guys, I just got Augusta, we got the majors. Like, look at Justin Thomas is great. Look how great he is.
He's awesome.
You know, he's awesome. Like, major champion Justin Thomas. And then they're like, well, no, we really need to see before the pickup. So it was literally like, and I chipped away and I had like one left. I got Jordan Spieth, which was great. I got a few of the other guys in, and it was like, there was one player left, and it was either going to be Rory or Brooks. And, you know, both of them playing great. Like Brooks kind of on top of the world at the moment. And I tried, I approached Rory. They were great, sat down with them, and they're like, not season one. Like, he's focusing on his golf. We're going to do season 2. We're in for season 2, but like season 1, we're gonna sit and just kind of see what it's like, and then ended up being Brooks. I did a Zoom with Brooks as well, and he sat down. And he's like, I watched Drive Survive. We binged it during COVID. Like, I remember sitting in the basement. It's like him and Claude Harmon. They said they binged through the whole thing, and they loved it. And he's like, I get what this is. I'm in. So Brooks was the final yes that like triggered the pickup from Netflix, which was amazing, you know. And then for him to be so open and be so authentically vulnerable as a pro athlete
raw.
is just like, it's amazing. And Brooks like just delivered. I have so much respect for him for being like that open and that vulnerable. But yeah, that was crazy. And then the story, so how Rory got in the show. I mean, Rory was episode 8. That story is kind of wild. It was like we were getting to the end of the year. We had sort of 7 episodes figured out. We didn't really have an ending for the season. We had like a bunch of ideas for what episode 8 could be. And we had, politely asked about Rory all year. And the deal was kind of like, okay, if he wins a major, he's in, like he'll jump in with you guys. And if you remember, like he played really well at I think he played really well at the Masters that year. And then at the PGA, like
the Masters when he had the hole out on the last hole.
Yeah.
Him and Colin.
Yeah. And then like he gets to the PGA and he like blitzes it at Southern Hills. Remember, he was like winning by like 4 or 5 after the first day.
Yeah, he went low.
And then Saturday, like, doesn't play as well. So I'm like, oh my God. And then we get to the US Open. I think it's kind of the same thing. I think he was in the clubhouse lead after like Saturday or something. So I'm like, every time it's like right there. And then we get to St. Andrews and I'm like, this is his moment.
It. 150th. Everything.
And it's like coronation, And so I'm just sitting there like praying, like if he wins this, he's in the show. And of course, like that Sunday happens. It's like the weirdest, most kind of heartbreaking. I've never felt like a whole town's energy just deflate all at once when Cam Smith made that putt on 17. And it was kind of over for Rory. It was like the whole town like got overcast, and then the whole town's energy just like fell flat.
Everybody's TV felt that way. Everybody watching with their friends felt that way. On Twitter, it felt that way. It was tough.
And it took like an unbelievable final round from Cam Smith and like get a totally deserving champion. But like, I mean, it was a weird feeling. And so I'm like, okay, well there goes like our chance at Rory. And so I was like, I got one more shot. And I decided that I was going to go to the Tour Championship. They were all coming over. This was after the kind of secret Delaware meeting. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, well, now there's like
Tiger flew in on his jet with Ricky.
That's right. And the players are doing something about it now. And I'm like, Rory's a big part of this. And so I'm like, this maybe is our window. He had said no a bunch of times. Again, very politely no, but like it said no. And I was like, I'm going to go to Atlanta. I'm going to show up. I'm going to fly in Sunday night. I'm going to get to the East Lake at 7 a.m. And I'm just going to sit around and wait until I see Rory. And I knew his agent wasn't there. Sorry, Sean. But I was going to I was just going to talk to Rory directly and just say like, make my pitch. So I fly in, everyone on my whole crew, like it's not just a one-man band. We have a huge team making the show. Everybody's like, all right, let's go. This is it. And so I get to East Lake at like 7:30 in the morning. It's empty except Hideki's like hitting balls. Like he's there. I don't even know what time he's there. Apparently he's been there for a couple hours already. So I'm walking around just like pacing upstairs by the locker room where we had access. And I'm just waiting and slowly, I see one guy come in. Now it's like 8:15, 8:30. It's still pretty quiet. And I walk down the hallway and I peek to my right and there's this little alcove and it's completely empty except one person sitting at a table by himself, Rory McIlroy, having breakfast by himself. So, do I stop and turn and go see? Absolutely not. Like I walk right past the room, go to the end of the hallway where there's like a mirror and just give like myself like a 30-second pep talk of like, this could be the whole show in one meeting.
You got to do this, man.
5 minutes. Like now is the time.
You got to grab him and you got to step up right here.
Pull him right in, get a mic on him right now. And so I turned back around, I walk in, I introduced myself. He knew who I was. I sat down. I was like, Rory, can I have like 5 minutes of your time? I'm sure you know like what I'm going to ask. And he was like, have a seat. And I give him my pitch. I say, listen, the world needs to have your voice right now. Like you're taking ownership of what matters to you on the PGA Tour. You and Tiger are leading the charge. This is the moment. If you wait until season 2, which again, we'd love to have you in season 2, but if you wait, people aren't going to hear from you until 2024. So that's a year and a half from this moment right now. The world needs to hear your voice right now. And he goes, all right, I'm in. I was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh,
Let's
what?
go,
and then
Chad,
you have to be stop talking at that moment. Don't keep talking. You've done it. He said yes. I just okay, thanks.
That makes me think of Frankie. Frankie would just keep talking. He'd be like, well, you don't have to do it if you want to. I was just
You're just gotta
no, I'm in.
keep going. So I said to Tim, I was like, well, I'll send the agreement to Sean, do you want me to call Sean? Because he's gonna, he knows his own agent. He's like, I'm like, is he gonna be pissed? He's like, no,
don't tell him I'm here.
I was like, I'll handle Sean, So I'd send to Sean an email with the contract. An hour later, he sends it back to me signed. Rory was the only player who didn't note it. He just signed it that an hour later. And then an hour and a half after that meeting, Rory had a mic on and was in the show.
No way.
And then he won the tour championship in the FedEx Cup.
Yep. Yeah, he did.
Wow. Just all in that one moment. And that was a wild ending.
They're so that's so relatable to us because we do this at majors and tournaments in general. But our thing is if we can get a 2-minute social clip of us chatting with Rory or with Tiger or with JT at one of these events, it makes our whole week worth it. And
totally.
Especially a lot of them, the Tiger interaction we had here at Pebble in 2019, where he pretty much put Trent's brain in a blender by asking him where we were stationed. That clip's got 3 million views on Twitter, and people reference it every week. And they just walk up to Trent and go, "Where are you stationed?" So we have those moments. We're walking around with these credentials. We're like, Tiger's putting. Should we go anywhere near Tiger? We should be we should go somewhere near Joey LaCava at the time before, and we'll go stand near Joey and then talk to Joey, and we'll be well, Tiger sees that we're friends with people that he's friends with,
right?
So maybe he'll say hi to us. We do that all the time. We play that game nonstop. Yeah. It's very nerve-wracking.
It is. You don't want to bother people, and but it's important, and that's our job.
Hello, everyone. I would like to tell you about some new performance outerwear I've been loving from our very good friends over at Peter Millar. I'm wearing right now this full zip hoodie that I'm obsessed with, as the dog days of summer have given way to cooler temperatures. Even in Arizona, it's 50 degrees in the morning right now. I'm depending on Peter Millar's innovative lineup of jackets and vests to keep me performing my best for those cool weather rounds and just cool weather hanging out. They've really improved, in my opinion, and really just brought the heat Peter Millar has with the hanging out clothes. Peter Millar uses revolutionary performance fabrics that provide lightweight, weather resistance, along with the perfect amount of warmth without overheating. Each design is ergonomically constructed to move with your swing on the course or your stride on the go. And no matter what your style is, Peter Millar has something for you. They're classy, they're proven, they're comfortable, they're the best. Whether you're looking for a bold statement piece or keeping it classic, the new lineup of Crown Sport outerwear has you covered. Head on over to petermillar.com to explore the newest Crown Sport outerwear from Peter Millar, the official outfitter of the USGA, by the way, our close personal friend. That's petermillar.com. We also have our own link, petermillar.com/foreplay. That's got a curation of a bunch of our favorites. So go check them out at petermillar.com. So how much say does Netflix have in what the episodes are?
They have as much say as they want. It's their show. They're paying for it and they're programming it. But they trust their teams, whether it's this show or the other shows I've made for them. They really put a lot of faith in in the filmmakers to tell the best story. So we've never really had any major disagreements about what episodes we're going to tell. And the way that we do the show is we start each season with audio interviews with the players first before we actually put anything on camera. We found as soon as you put a camera up on a pro athlete with the lights and everything, they tend to go, if it's not a podcast format or something, they tend to go into talking points mode, which, as you would expect, every round they play on the PGA Tour, they finish, there's a mic in their face or there's a press conference. And you just get kind of canned stuff. And so the way that we started is we sit them down, no cameras, just a mic on the lapel. We told them to come in street clothes, and we just sit like this and rap. And all of a sudden, like 30 minutes turns into an hour, that turns into an hour, 45 minutes. We haven't talked about a single golf shot. It's just about who they are. And we ask them what is important to them in their life, what relationships matter. If they could sort of write their year, like what events are they most excited about? What are they dreading? Like, what are they working on? What are they thinking? And if you do it we do it in the off season before the season starts, and you kind of look back on those hour and a half like audio interviews, and you kind of have the arc of a whole episode, because they're going to tell you what's important to them for the year. And so a lot of those, that's how we sort of write at the beginning of the year. We sort of take those interviews, we pair people up. We're like, okay, we think this story could work with this story. There was some similarities, there's some surprising contrasts. And then we kind of write it, we put it up on the wall, and we say, okay, here could be an arc. And then we start tracking it. And we do that for like 25, 30 players. And as the season kind of gets going, like some of the stories come down because they're like, someone's just not living up to expectations, or something amazing, crazy happens, which it always does. And then all of a sudden now you're here. And then we start to like hone it down into like the eight episodes of the year. And Netflix, they get that early story grid. We're like, okay, here's, 10 or 20 possible storylines. And then as it gets, we check in with them every month and basically say, okay, here's what we're thinking. And then it starts to tighten down at the end of the season once we start editing. And then now it's like really intense. I mean, right now we're sitting here in November, and it's like we are like in deep, like third, fourth cuts of episodes, and just talking about like, does this go here? Does this scene, can we move it forward? Like, does it, it gets very intense in terms of the notes, but like, that's what makes it great, because they're looking at it, we've been living it in this world for the last 2.5 years, and they're like sitting in an office in LA watching 500 other cuts of other shows. And it's awesome to get like a really broad perspective on like, okay, well, I don't care, because like I've not been living this world. So how do you make them excited about it and invested in the characters? It's just like really useful, helpful contextual notes, because when you get really in it, you can get real weedsy.
Oh yeah.
And so they're really good at sort of keeping it framed up and keep the story simple, make it relatable. But they've been great.
The contrasts are great, and we were talking about this again last night, but the contrast between the Brooks and the Schefflers, the Koepkas and the Schefflers, and when we were saying like when Brooks is on that little like weird bench in his kitchen and he's got those like sunglasses on, and Jenna's kind of doing her thing, and he's like, when you're playing well, like Scotty Scheffler's probably the happiest person in the world right now, and they just cut to the Schefflers and they're like skipping down the street like drinking iced coffee.
Yeah. Like discussing like, which one tastes better. Like, you like the Frappuccino?
Do you like the hazelnut? I kind of like the hazelnut.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, and then Brooks is just in a house of horrors.
Yeah.
So this season is, I mean, obviously the Ryder Cup, everybody kind of knew. I think whether it was you in interviews, somebody was like, the Ryder Cup's going to be a main focal point kind of the season 2 in the whole deal. Going in, how early do you start sitting guys down and trying to talk Ryder Cup?
I mean, it was early. Like in the audio interviews we did at this beginning of this season, every character we asked them about the Ryder Cup. So we started audio interviews this year at Fore, so
late January.
And everyone that sat down, that could play on the team, that were European or American, we asked them about it. How important is the Ryder Cup to you? What is it going to take for you to make that team? What are your expectations? What was it like playing on the team before? What would it be like to make the team for the first time? And so, I mean, we knew it was going to be the storyline, and it took us, I mean, longer, honestly, to convince the people who run the Ryder Cup to let it be in the show than it did to like get Augusta on board for the show, period. Like they were really, that took a long time to build the trust.
Is it just because they're so protective of it?
I think it's like, it's every 2 years. It's the vast, the PGA of America does a lot of good for the game of golf, and a lot of that money comes from the Ryder Cup. Like that is, more than the championship. Like it's really important for them to be able to afford to.
Needs to be a home run.
It has to be a home run, and same thing with and then even with the DP World Tour. Like it's every 2 years. It's hugely important to their like institution from like a business perspective and just from a competition perspective. So there was like they had their own plans about what they wanted to do, and then they saw the success of Full Swing, and then we sort of built the trust with them and got to know the officials who run each side, and and just sort of explain like what we wanted to do with it, and so from a storytelling perspective, it's the greatest thing ever for our show, because the hardest thing from season 1 was like you don't know who's going to win, obviously, every week, and there's 140 guys in the field, and of those guys, 20 of them are our cast members, but we can't be following all of them all the time, so we kind of have to bet on people, and like we can pivot a little bit,
and there's no real underlying storyline for the whole year.
No,
really.
And you just have to follow. You just have to kind of get lucky, and we did. We chose well, and we did our research, but with the Ryder Cup, it's like tailor-made for it, because it's binary. Like you're either going to make the team or you're not. And if you're close to making the team and you don't, it's really dramatic. And it's like a crushing loss at a big major tournament, which would be great context and content for us. If you make the team, same thing. Like you're either gonna you make it. We can make that moment of when you find out that you made the team, whether it's like holding a putt at the last qualifying tournament or winning a tournament that gets you over the hump. We can make that moment really big. And then once the tournament itself starts, there's a winner and a loser. So like, half the guys are upset and the other half are like the happiest they've ever been in their lives. And so it just gives the stakes for everybody, like just such clear, obvious like places where the story's going to go. Yep. And like we didn't know who was going to win or lose. We didn't know who was going to make the team or not, but we knew that like those decisions were going to be really important. And the fact that there's captain's picks and we had access to the captains and they were really great. Like Zach and Luke were amazing with us. Like anytime we wanted to film, they basically both talked to each other and they said, this is part of the job. Netflix is part of the job. So we're if you say yes to something, I'm going to say yes to something. And that's cool. I have so much respect for both of them because they did like almost never turned us down once. I don't even think they did once. Like every time we wanted to film with them, we're in, they were in. And so then, then that introduces the captain's element too. So now you get to know the captain and their family and what they're going through and how kind of thankless that job can be and how hard that can be. And then they have to make 6 picks and what goes into that choice. Like, so there's just these moments of drama that are like, that we know are coming that we can plan for. And we just bring it and it like totally delivered in exactly the way we hoped. I think like whether you're like Team USA guy or, just like great competition, the stories and that happened at the Ryder Cup, we knew it was going to be good. I mean, it was like even bigger than we thought.
How great was Saturday night for you guys?
Oh, it was electric. I mean, and then just the fact that the way the Ryder Cup works. I mean, you're sitting here like, I don't know what we can see behind us, but every hole is kind of in a bowl at that course at Marco Simone.
Yeah, almost like a stadium course, kind of.
Really stadium coursey. And everyone's inside the ropes. It's like the families are inside the other players who aren't playing at that point. The captains are riding around on carts. And everybody's just kind of in this like roving community because there's only like 4 matches happening on the course at one time. So even if you're like on the course, you're getting all this behind the scenes stuff because you're sitting there with other players that are on the show talking about what they're seeing with their friends. And it's just really rare to have like a professional athlete like talking about another player in the moment of a competition. We'll interview them and ask what it was like playing with somebody when they hit the shot. Like
they're pretty much on their own page.
They're on their
individualistic.
Own page. But they're
focused
like
on themselves.
They're
caddy.
Like cheering on putts going in, and they're like getting themselves fired up, and it just like delivered exactly how you would want it to.
Riggs, I got one for Chad.
Well, yeah.
Obviously, you said we're getting down to the nitty gritty. You're editing, right? It's like around November. It's coming out soon. There's got to be a ton of stuff that's left on that cutting room floor.
Oh God, yeah.
Like the decisions. Is it mostly you?
Yeah. No, I mean, no. It's definitely like a team. We have a handful of executive producers that sort of are the EPs on the show. So it's myself. I guess I'm the creator of the show, but Warren Smith from Box to Box, they do Drive to Survive and Breakpoint, and then Paul Martin and James K. Reese, and then my partner Mark Olson on our side, on the Vox side. Like we're the executive producers of the show. Everybody brings their own perspective. I'm the golf super nerd. The Box to Box guys are just like really good sports storytellers. They've done it now in every sport potentially, pretty much, and they're really good at sort of keeping it simple as well. And
they do the tennis one too.
They do the tennis one.
Yeah.
And so we are a great team, and now we've worked together for sort of 2 years. And
is there any one person who makes like a final call?
No, it's all sort of the collective. We've had big arguments before. But, there's enough time in the edit where you can try it. You're like, hey, I want to move this thing up or I want to focus on this character, and we'll try it and we'll see how it feels. And it's like, that didn't work. Like, we thought that might work, didn't work. And so then, it all kind of funnels together at the end.
Yeah, because how many hours of footage do you guys have?
The deleted scenes alone could be a show.
Oh, yeah. No, last year we shot 780 hours of original footage. And then we brought in another like 3,000 hours of archive from like everywhere.
That's just the tour, like from the events, from everything?
Yeah, from historical footage, but also like footage from the events,
press
every
conferences.
Angle, press conferences, all this stuff. And that all
3,000 hours?
3,000 hours. It all gets time synced into this like post system.
Like AI or something does that?
No, like people on the team go through and time sync.
I know you guys hate doing that, right? Isn't the time sync just the worst
I'm just like, that's got to be the most footage in terms of size. Like you're shooting 4K, 8K sometimes.
Yeah, 8K. Yeah.
Holy hell.
Yeah, 4K and 8K. It's a lot. I mean, and it's But like it's a big production. We've got like
Yeah.
infrastructure for it. The post team is like, I think we've got more than 30 people on it. And they're like, they
Jesus.
know all that footage up and down, and and actually it's funny. So we use like a lot of the systems that do all the archive management, and the PGA Tour has one. It's like their Mumm, media asset management system. It's like where their archive is. And I was told by someone at the PGA Tour that our archive producer is like the number one like user of that system of anybody. Like he like submits bug notes. They love him.
That's incredible.
He's just like used it more than anyone else. Like even on the tour, he's like, oh yeah, back here in this clip, it's like slightly out of sync. They're like, how'd you find that? He's like, I'm watching everything.
I see it all.
But yeah, so you have to condense it down, and like, there's stuff that gets left on the cutting room floor for sure. And this year we've had to make some really hard decisions about really great stories that have beginning, middle, and ends, but just don't quite have enough stakes for like the year. Like this year, in golf, which was another year of like crazy twists and turns, and the announcement of the potential like deal with PIF and what that felt like, and then the Ryder Cup stuff, like and then a lot of times with a show like this, when you have to remember you're making it for Netflix's like global audience, that's like 120 million or 145 million households. Like it has to be broad, it has to be broadly appealing.
Yeah, especially for you, you're a golf nut. That must be hard.
That's the hardest part for me is like, I'm like, this story's amazing, and they're like, yeah, but for you it's amazing, but how is that relatable to like a normal person who's just like trying to be entertained after a long day at work?
Right.
You got to think broad like that. But they and then sometimes it's like, we really do like to have multiple stories in an episode. It's really hard to have one character carry a whole episode. And so you kind of need at least two to bounce back and forth and do some of that contrast. And, and we have one story this year that's like an amazing story, but there's no one to put them with. And so like, we're just going to sit on it, and I'll have to, hopefully next year, like that character will do something and we can roll it back out. That happened to us in year one of the biggest stars in the game.
I'm just kidding.
You'll see. I mean, you could probably infer like, we filmed with one of the first players to say yes, maybe the first player to say yes to the show. We were filming with him for like 2 years, and we finished season 1, and there's a lot of expectations that he was going to be in the show, and we're like, you didn't do anything. You finished the year, you're like 130th in the world, and we're like, but just trust us, like you're getting better, let's see what happens. And then you saw what happened this year, and it's like the greatest episode ever, because it's 2 years of like absolute bottom back up to the top. And it's like, it pays off, and so that's one thing that was on the cutting room floor last year. If you had asked me like, what was the story I wish we could have done in season 1, I was like, it's that. I have it. It's just there's no ending yet. Yep. It's on its way, but it's not there. And then this year, that player delivers the ending, and
right.
you're like, let's go.
That's also just you having like so many years in doing this, understanding and having that patience, because people just can't. Patience is impossible to have, and like I said earlier, in a landscape in media where things are so instantaneous and it feels like they're gone, to have the patience to sit on something has got to be insanely difficult.
Well, and you got when you have amazing partners, like creative partners like I do and like you guys do here, it's like you just talk it out. You like talk out your feelings. You fight over it. You're like, can we sit on it? Like, and then let's just wait. Like, we'll see something will go. And you get validation. You're like, okay, we all agree. Like, we're gonna sit on it. So then it's like, okay, now I gotta call his agent and be like, he's not in the show.
Yeah.
And
after all that,
yeah. But they got it, and then sure enough, like that patience was rewarded, and like that episode's awesome because it was earned.
There's never a wrong time to protect your home. That is a fact. It can be scary out there, but this fall happens to be an especially good time because you can get up to 50% off a brand new SimpliSafe home security system. SimpliSafe was named the best home security of 2023 by U.S. News and World Report. SimpliSafe is comprehensive protection for the whole home with advanced sensors that detect break-ins, fires, floods, and much more, plus HD cameras for both inside and out. It's powered by 24/7 professional monitoring for less than $1 a day, half the cost of traditional home security. With new 24/7 live guard protection and the smart alarm wireless indoor camera, monitoring agents can see and speak to intruders, helping stop crime in real time. A powerful technology exclusively from our great friends at SimpliSafe. Satisfaction is backed by SimpliSafe's money back guaranteed. Try SimpliSafe for 60 days risk-free. If you don't love it, return your system for a full refund. anything happens, maybe you had some golf clubs stolen, maybe somebody sneaks into your garage, or they can see through your window that you've got this fantastic set of clubs out there, pop them in there, snag them, they break a window, whatever it might be. That just wouldn't happen if you have Simply Safe. So with more time either at or away from home this holiday season, Simply Safe is perfect to make us all feel more at ease. For a limited time, listeners can get a special 50% off any Simply Safe system with a Fast Protect plan. Visit simplysafe.com/foreplay. That's simplysafe.com/foreplay. There's no safe like Simply Safe. So I remember in Drive to Survive, whenever it was, it might have been late season 1 or maybe it's early season 2 or so, but when they get Lewis Hamilton for the first time, and he's the whole time, he's just this figure that they're all like chasing, and he's talked about, and he's at the top, and they're not focusing on him at all. They're focusing on all these other drivers and Carlos Sainz, and they're focusing on the Australian dude who I can't think his name is, who's on Pardon My Take all the time, and they're finishing like 7th and all this, and it's just Lewis Hamilton again, and you never see him. And then when that fucker sits down, and you're like, oh my God, they got him. So my question would be like, what do we got to do to get Tiger Woods?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be great to know if he's seen the show. I actually did hear that he enjoyed it, which is great. Didn't hear that directly, but I assume that he watched it, and
I would say he watched it. He's a nut job.
And
with all golf.
I mean, I think that anytime he wants to sit down, the door's open. So we could say that right there to the camera. Tiger, anytime you want to sit down, we'd love to have you.
Especially if he returns.
Yeah.
Especially if he returns, you'll have stuff like not with him.
Yeah, him. I mean, we had a little bit of him last year at the Masters, like making the cut, like how big of a deal it was in season 1. Like that was a huge moment. I mean, I think Tiger, to get Tiger would be amazing. I think what makes this show work is like you don't have to have a Tiger Woods to make the show compelling. True. And and in some ways, like he becomes the story so much anytime that he's playing really well. It's been good that there's been space to let some of these other storylines. Because he could just trounce
everything else for sure.
Yeah, it could, and then you'd have to you have to fight the urge to just make it a Tiger show because it's just so compelling. Like his story is just so compelling, and but he's the whole Excel team has been super supportive, which has been nice, and I'm sure that he's a part of that, leaning into this thing, and a lot of his buddy JT's been in the show now 2 seasons. It's been great, and so I think we've done we've opened the door for sure. But we're not counting on it. It's not like it's going to be a make or break thing for us getting Tiger.
All right, Chad. I could talk about this stuff all day with you. It's great. I think it's amazing for golf in general. I think season 2 I'm even more jacked up about just because you guys have laid the groundwork. The larger global audience understands golf at this point. If they're in season 2, they understand making cuts and all that.
Don't have to talk about pars, birdies, or cuts.
No, you can get into kind of the layers and peel back and the onion and the whole deal. So yeah, it was fun talking about it last night. I appreciate you coming on. I know you're immersed in this whole thing, so I can't even imagine. Probably therapeutic at times to just kind of talk about it.
Yeah, it's nice. You're a great talker, so this is it's been great.
It was fun. I appreciate you. We got 50 more holes to play, so
let's get out there.
Thank you. Good luck with season 2, and we're gonna have you back on around release time.
Sounds great.
We'll get back into it.
Count on it.
Thank you.
All right.